Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. Enterprise Bank and Trust was founded by entrepreneurs with the core focus of serving privately owned small and medium-sized businesses who have a story to tell. Enterprise Bank's commitment is to listen, learn, and guide clients to a lifetime of financial success. Enterprise Bank, together there's no stopping you. My name is Joel Goldberg, coming to you from the Kansas City Audiovisual Studios. They create engaging spaces. Check them out at kcav.com. Some great guests this week. I think all my guests are always pretty awesome. And this week, both conversations have delved a little bit more into the sports world. And, I'll bounce around into that a little bit here and there. But so often I'm kind of connecting the dots between sports and business, and doing that with my business guests, entrepreneurs, leaders. And today I get a chance to visit with someone who has really made a career of doing that. And, I've been excited about my new book, Small Ball, Big Results. Feel like, hey, I wrote a book. The guy that I have on today has written 7 of them, and he has a DR in front of his name, Dr. Rob Bell. And I've had the chance to get to know Rob a little bit, and very impressive. A lot of insight that he'll share with us today. Dr. Bell is a sports psychology coach, author, and speaker. He's spoken to the NFL, PGA, companies like Marriott and Walgreens. The 7 books that he's written have been on mental toughness. His 7th book is called Puke and Rally, and it's not really my story, although I mentioned earlier in the week that I had some stomach flu issues. No COVID. That's the good news. But I feel like I was literally taking part in Rob's book because, well, we don't really need to know all the details other than the fact that I've rallied and I am back and I'm happy to join. That's the first puke introduction I've ever done. But Dr. Rob Bell joins me right now. How are you?
Very apropos. Thanks, Joel. Appreciate it, buddy.
Well, it's good to have you on, and a little bit of a home and home in sports terms. I was on your podcast. You're on mine now, and your podcast, I really liked it, and I enjoyed the format of it. 15 minutes of mental toughness, and we really dove in. But that is your life, mental toughness, which is not something that has to just apply to the athletes, the professional athletes. I know you've done a lot of work with professional golfers and other sports, and we'll get into that. But how important is that skill, if that's what it is, of mental toughness, no matter what you do in life?
Well, I think, and like I said, I think everybody's an athlete. Our office is just different. And that's the approach I take on things because, what does it mean to be an athlete? Well, as an athlete, like, we're going to have wins, we're going to have losses, right? I mean, we're going to have more losses than we are wins in life. And that's the thing. It's not about the losses. It's always about the comeback. As an athlete, like, we have to show up. The other part about an athlete is we got to compete. And I think compete, sometimes we always think that it's competing against somebody else, when the really toughest opponent that we're trying to compete against is our own mind. Our own mind wants to keep us safe, doesn't want to take risks, put us out there. And that's who we're competing against all the time. That's what I always say. Everybody's an athlete. Our office is just different. When it comes to the importance of mental toughness, I mean, it's more important now than ever. And I always think, I only think it's important, though, is if you really want to be great and want to achieve your potential and want to achieve that success. The guy said it this morning, like, if you want to work like few do so you can live like few can. If you want to live in the mediocrity of the world and in the middle, I really don't think you need to be that mentally tough, and you just live in a different kind of life. But if it is somebody who, and I'm sure they're listening to your podcast right now, that's why I listen to it, want to get better, then mental toughness becomes the separator between really reaching our goals and not.
Yeah, this is something that applies to anyone in any walk of life, no matter what you do. I think it's that extra something that the best athletes have, right? I mean, that's you've seen that at the highest of levels. I've seen that at the highest of levels. Those guys that, fill in the blank for the sport, that just keep shooting free throws after everybody or jump shots after everybody leaves. Those guys that sit there on the driving range and are there hours after everyone leaves. And that, of course, applies to the business world too. I guess my question would be, is that something that can be taught and coached, or is it inherently what's in you?
That's a great question, man. So I think mental toughness, well, let's define it first, right? So mental toughness, I mean, if you go out on the web, I mean, you're gonna see tons of different definitions. I mean, I'm a jeans and t-shirt kind of guy, right? Mental toughness, all it is how we deal, handle, and cope with the struggle and the adversity in life. That's all it is. The other part about mental toughness, which a lot of athletes face then on a daily basis, is how we perform well under pressure. So adversity has to be in the definition. It's not a flow experience where everything just goes great and while it's mentally tough. Adversity has to be in there. So I always say mental toughness, it's caught more than it's taught. I mean, it's an experience. And so a lot of the times, the circumstance that we were raised in or the situation that we're in right now, or somebody telling us that we're not good enough, these are experiences that we have to be able to overcome. Now, what I've always seen, and that was one of the reasons kind of why I wrote Puke and Rally, was every successful person, Joel, and I always love your opinion on this one, but every successful person was told at some point in their life, that's a bad idea. Don't try. It's not going to work. And that is what actually propelled them to success. Everybody who's been successful had that. They always had that naysayer, but that's a really painful experience, especially if that comes from a teacher or coach or somebody close to you. So I always say it's caught more than it's taught. Now, what we're trying to do is we're always preparing for these moments that are going to happen in our lives, that are going to be hinge moments, that are going to make all the difference in our life. The issue is we don't know when they're coming. We have no idea who that person is going to be or what that decision is going to be. When we can only connect the dots, like looking backwards in life. And so that's the importance of when we start to go through the motions in life, when we just start to say, hey, this doesn't really matter, this practice isn't that important. When we start to do that, that's when the mental toughness piece, that muscle that we're trying to exercise, that's when it atrophies. And then when those moments happen, it's not going to be there for us because we didn't develop habits and the characteristics and that grit that we're going to need when it matters the most. And that's the part that I look at, hey, that's why mental toughness is so important.
You've spent a lifetime studying this, and I know it's something that you were interested in even throughout your long journey. We all have long journeys, but your path went in some different directions. I believe in the conversations that you and I have had, to a place that you really have found your purpose and you're happy. And that's interesting to me because on paper, people might have assumed that you had already found that. I mean, you get a doctor next to your name, you're teaching, you're a professor, you're doing all these big things, and yet you hadn't quite found yourself. Give me the journey of Rob Bell. I know that you were a Division II college baseball player, so you certainly had the sports background, but how did you get from there to here?
Yeah, you got it, man. Well, I'd say that part about being a D2 baseball player never even came to fruition because I got kicked off the team when I got to college. Man, I was a knucklehead, man. I liked partying and baseball, and when I get to college, there's no accountability. Like, what could possibly go wrong? And we're partying for some reason. Whenever I'm speaking at colleges, I always say like nothing good happens after midnight, and this was absolutely after midnight. For some reason, we're partying near this bridge. This bridge is this cliff, and I end up walking off an 80-foot cliff. I didn't jump. I wasn't pushed. I just had absolutely no idea where I was. I'm laying at the bottom of this crevasse. They had to crane me up out of it, take me to the hospital where my mom is a nurse. Now, I know I'm in an extreme amount of pain. I mean, I've broken my arm, fractured my back, big gaping head wound. My mom had no sympathy on me whatsoever, man. I mean, she's the oldest of 11 Catholic family. This happens on a Friday. I'm back to school on Monday, limping in coach's office. And, it said, man, someone's looking out for you. And I said, I know, coach, I appreciate that. I get it. And I didn't get it at the time, but you're not going to be playing baseball here. So boom, hinge moment. Because from that moment on, everything was different. I'm walking around campus. Now I'm that guy. No one wants to be that guy. Oh, that's the guy right there that fell off that cliff. That was him. I mean, a big erector set on my arm, a lot of pain, drugged up. And if it wasn't for that moment, though, and that caused a lot of pain, especially emotional pain, because I screwed up. I don't think anybody really wants to ever mess up that bad. And when you mess up that bad, then there's a lot of scar tissue, emotional tissue, because, man, I'm broken. I've messed up. But if it wasn't for that moment, I wouldn't have taken that psychology class. I wouldn't have had that professor that made the impact in my life. And then it was tattooed in my heart at that moment. This is what I want to do with a career. I want to work with athletes, coaches, and teams and help them with this part, the sports psychology piece. And so it ended up becoming a blessing. And I always see, look, in every bad situation, some good is going to come out of that. And, it was only from getting that second chance. And Lance Armstrong said this, and I just thought it was an epic quote, but I always had this one. He said, if you ever get a second chance at life, you got to go all the way. And I never forgot that. And I always, regardless of what we think about Lance, I mean, that quote is still true. And I was given a second chance. I wasn't going to blow it. Went to grad school, man, and then just started it on the journey of pushing myself as much as I could. So I'm trying to be a product of the product when it comes to mental toughness, man. So if it's doing Ironmans and doing ultra marathons and, a 100-mile race this year, just to see, how far we can push ourselves. And it's only during when we're doing really, really tough stuff that we meet ourselves. And sometimes, man, we don't like the person that we meet, but we can't avoid it. We have to meet that person. We got to know what the pitfalls are, where our hangups, headaches are in our own life. That's the only way that I think that we get to develop the character and the resiliency and the grit that's going to propel us and to be able to help us help other people. And that's in a nutshell, man. That was, I've been blessed to work with PGA Tour winners and, just a lot of different successful people, man, people that had a lot more talent than I did. And it was great. The other reason why I share that story is because if it wasn't for that cliff moment there, Joel, the train would have wrecked in another way. So it ended up really becoming a blessing, man.
It was coming one way or another, and it might
Sure
not
was.
have been like falling off a cliff, because we're all going to have those moments in some form or another too. But that was, I guess, that was sort of your aha moment. That was the quote unquote wake up call, right?
I always say sometimes we get a nod from God or a nudge from the judge. Like you pick, right? And that was the nod from God there, man.
Well said. So, how long was there a thought of being in academia? Tell me about that, and what sort of pushed you away from there.
Yeah, great question, man. I mean, so in academia, I mean, the way that sports psychology works and the way this field works is, you go and you get your doctorate and you either start as a counseling psychologist, which I was not interested in working with, alcoholism and depression. And that's definitely needed, but that's not where my skill set lied. And so the other route then is you just go into academia and you kind of build up your practice. And, if you work with athletes, great. And so that's the route that I went in. So, I mean, I was an academic professor from, 2006, 2011. I was working with athletes, but I reached that point where I just wasn't all in on either thing. A professor working with students, and I love teaching. I still teach, and that's just part of who I am, but I wasn't all in. And it was one of those moments that you're either all in or you're in the way. And I was in the way of becoming who I wanted to be. And, 2 kids under the age of 5, it was something I prayed about, and I went in and I told my boss at that point, I said, look, I'm out, I'm done. And I leapt and just took the leap of faith into developing my own career. And the reason why I did that is because Gil Reyes shared this one with me. That was Andre Agassi's strength coach. And he said an epic quote as well. He said, some battles are worth fighting even if you lose. Look, man, I wanted the shot. I was willing to take it. But even if I missed, I wasn't willing to go down this path of not seeing how good I could become, because I've always felt in my heart of hearts, this is what I was meant to do with my life. This was my purpose, to be able to help other people. And it wasn't happening. And I wanted the shot. I want to be able to take that shot. Now, again, we're going to be able to miss it. That's part of it. But I think we have to be able to miss those shots in order to make it. That was another hinge moment in my life, man, of, really becoming the professional. And it always worked out, man. And that's the part I believe. Faith isn't faith until it's all you got. Those are the leaps, man. Those are the jumps that we got to be able to take.
You work with some really big name athletes, and maybe some that aren't as a big name, but they're known within their sports and highly successful. What I'm curious about is the trust aspect of things. Clearly, you're an expert, but you know this as well as I do, that those high level athletes, just like the highest level of CEO, they don't let just anyone in. That's a process. It takes time. and it takes a lot of faith on their part. It's not a lack of skills on your end. It's a matter of making that connection, building that trust, and letting them understand that you can help make them better. How do you go about that?
And it's a great one, man. I learned it from you, man. I learned it from the skills that you share. I mean, it's not really a secret. It's just being available, being able to provide value. And then the part is, it's just, I mean, I love taking interest in people, taking an interest in people. And I try to be very selective of the people I work with. And the reason why is because I mean, you and I both know, I mean, just because you're a pro athlete or a CEO doesn't make you a good person. And we've seen them both, right? The people that we think that we know what they're like aren't like that at all. And the people maybe that we think are jerks, man, are actually really good people. And so I always say, like, good people make great athletes. Great athletes don't make good people. And being able to work with good people, man, means being invested in who they are as a person. And again, what's their purpose? Because if their purpose is only in making the shot, if it's only in making the putt, then when you think about it, man, there's going to be that emptiness that's going to be there after they make it, because we can't live on those mountaintops. And so it's really, man, it's developing that whole person. And man, what is the significance? What's the impact? What's the purpose that we want to make in life? And I think, again, being a product of the product, taking an interest in people, asking good questions. And, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Look, I'm not that great in terms of working with everybody. But I always believe that the right opportunity is going to happen. The people I'm going to help, I'm going to be able to help. And the people I can't. And that's what we got to focus on, man, is the ones that we can control and that we can help.
There's so much there about purpose too. I just want to do a quick follow-up on that because, and I always relate this when I talk about purpose, and my job is that I'm living my dream. I always wanted to be on TV. I didn't know that it would be pregame, postgame show host, in-game reporter for the Kansas City Royals. No such job even existed back when I was growing up, but it's truly been living my dream. That's different than purpose. That to me is what you're saying about making the shot. Amazing feeling to be on the stage, to be able to be the one, right? To be under the spotlights, the lights, the camera, all that type of stuff. Once that's over, then what? Right? I mean, and finding that purpose, we hear so many people talk about that right now, is not easy. I wonder how deep you dig with your athletes and your clients with that, who I'm sure oftentimes are just hyper focused on making the shot.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, in order to be a pro athlete, I mean, you have to be selfish when it comes to your preparation. You really do. I mean, you have to have the right partner in life. You got to have the right team around you, because it requires so much time. The only issue with that is, when you're an athlete, I mean, you start getting the pats in the back, and then, we start craving that affirmation piece. And boy, it's a good one, right? It's like when you make the shot, like success has 1,000 fathers, but failure is an orphan. You make the shot, you've got thousands of people texting you, man, let you know how great it was, right? You miss it, who's texting you then? And, I use these mountaintop analogies because if you ever look at the mountaintop, like nothing lives up on that mountaintop. You have to come back down. And the real growth takes place on the way back down in the valleys of life. And it always getting back to, man, that relationships that we got in life, man. The quality of our relationship is going to impact our overall life satisfaction and who we impact and who we helping along the way. With once we reach that level of success in life, however we want to define it, it really just becomes about significance and the legacy that we're leaving for other people. And that's the part of it becomes so much more impactful and so much more beneficial when we see others having success that we were able to help along the way. And one of my philosophies in life is that a better us is what makes a better you. And a better you is what makes a better us. But the better that we can get, and whatever our us is going to be, the better our us is, the better that we're going to be. And then it's really being able to focus on other people and helping them reach their goals. And that's the part about purpose and significance, man, that, fires me up and motivates me.
Before I move on to the baseball themed questions, let's talk about the newest book, Puke and Rally, the 7th book that you have written. So tell me a little bit about this one, which I think in many ways is what you were just describing too, about coming down from the mountain and finding a way, and then how it differs from some of the other books.
Yeah, man, and I appreciate that. Well, there's a significant story that why that book was written. The very first chapter, if people tear into it, and I was lucky I had Kenny Aronoff wrote the foreword for the book, and his story is amazing. And it really just centers around this: is that we've all puked in life. We've all done it. We've all had setbacks in life, but the key is that it's not about the setback. It's always about the comeback. It's not about the strikeout that's going to happen. It's about the next opportunity. Well, what they never tell us, Joel, is this. At least I was never told this, right? Is when you strike out, when you fail, because we hear the cliche of, well, you fall down 7, you get up 8. Well, that sounds nice. But when you fall down 7 times, that 7th time that you fall down, they never tell us this. Every other failure that we ever had in our life then comes flooding back, and we're reminded of how we fell short before. And so then we can fall into that trap of thinking, man, I am broken, I'm not good enough. They never tell us that, hey, well, each failure is just going to be a separate thing. It's not, man. Everything comes flooding back. The key is this, man, is that, man, if we can just treat each one by itself, if we can overcome that one mistake that we're going to make, if we can overcome, like, we set these physical goals, right? These nutritional goals, right? And then we have that piece of cake. Doesn't mean we have to eat the whole cake, right? But sometimes then we throw up our hands and say, screw it, man, I blew it. See, I knew I couldn't do this because of all the past failures that we had. And that was the difference about Puke and Rally, was like, man, what does it take to really rally knowing that we're going to puke? And it came back, man, to confidence. And how do we build confidence? Man, it comes from competence, and it comes from the connection that we have with others. Being able to help others along their journey actually helps us. And the other key, man, I kind of said it before. Look, everybody who's been successful is told that you're not good enough. That's a huge puking moment, and it's going to be really painful that we go through. But that's a Fisher cut bait moment because we need that to happen. It's a prerequisite, the way I see, in order to achieve our goals, because we can't be in the middle. We're either going to agree to that negative voice that says you're not good enough, or that situation that says you're not good enough, or we're going to agree with ourselves and our own internal voice that says, yes, you can. Now, people always morph it into proving people wrong, and I think that's effective up to a point, but I think it's more about proving yourself right. And that's what Puke and Rally, man, is all about.
I definitely want to encourage people to check that out, and you could find it all over the place, and certainly on Rob's website too, drrobbell.com, and it'll be in the show notes. Time now for our baseball themed questions, brought to you by Kissick Construction, trusted team, reliable partner. Check them out at kissickco.com. Let's begin with this one, and we've got to stick to business, profession, not your kids, not your wife, nothing personal. What is, Rob, the biggest home run that you have hit in your career?
Well, I mean, I could say like Ironman, could say ultra marathons. I still think the biggest one was just getting my master's degree and finishing my thesis. And the reason why is because I wasn't a good writer at all in high school and even college, man. I mean, and I sucked. Let's just say that, right? And to be able to go through that whole process, man, was such a pain. It was so arduous. You would write something and have it tore apart. Being able to finish that thesis and to have it perfect, it has to be perfect. That was probably the biggest home run, man, because then it kind of gave me that belief, and I could always go back to, hey, how did I do that before? Because once you do something before, then you can do it again.
Makes sense. What an accomplishment to be able to get that master's. I say that as someone that thinks, how in the world can anyone have time to do something like that? So I know the amount of effort that goes into it. How about a swing and a miss, which really falls into the whole Puke and Rally discussion? Because my question that I ask every guest is a swing and a miss, and what did you learn from it?
So the swing and the miss, and I think about this one a lot. I mean, there have been a lot of swings. There have been a lot of misses. We don't get to reach that top level without having, and I didn't say like choked, right? Made a huge mistake. I'd probably say trying to size up whether somebody was good enough or whether it was, so kind of early on in my career, I mean, I didn't see some characteristics in some people that I thought that they could be successful. And so, I didn't necessarily invest in them or passed on, being able to work with them. And the reason why it was a swing and miss is because I was only looking at a few of the attributes that I valued. Well, man, there's a whole lot of different ways that you can be successful, and you just have to be so good at one part of this game. And a swing and a miss was, and I just think of one golfer in particular, man, that I didn't work with because I just didn't think that it was there for him. Reached enough level of success that it just kind of showed me that was like, wow, there's a lot of different ways that you can get that stuff done. And then I always get back to this, like speculation, it's the mother of all evil. The best eighth grader right now in the country, pick the sport, should be the best 10th grader, man, should be the best, senior, be the best college player, and then is going to be in the Olympics. But that rarely happens. Why? Because there's so many ingredients that go into success. So I always just say on that, man, it's not trying to predict how good that somebody could be.
And then the small ball question, what the book was based on, small ball, big results, the little things that add up to the big things. What is small ball to you?
So small ball for me, and I'll even get back to that thesis example, and the way that I've written every single book is simply this, right? You treat everything as a workout. And the way that I would write in the small ball is you write for 1 hour every day, no less, maybe a little bit more, but you leave yourself a good cutoff spot right there, and then you pick it up the next day. So you average it out for 6 days a week. I mean, there's always going to be a life that happens in there. But for 6 days a week, and once you develop that habit, man, before you know it, I mean, you got 90 days of writing. Now you've got material. Now you got ideas. All you got to do, man, treat everything like a workout. That's the small ball stuff. You can do that. I'm not that smart, Joel. I can't write for 4 or 5 hours. I can't go, to the beach and watch the whales and get inspired like that. That's not me, man. It's being able to sit down 1 hour. I can do that. That's the small ball piece, man.
No, that's really interesting. And I think that piece, whether it be writing or whatever it is going to be different for each person. I mean, that's what worked for you, and you understood then that incrementally, this is how you were going to get to the end for that book. And there's obviously so much discipline in what you're doing. Okay, 4 final questions as we round the bases. And the first one that I want to ask you, with all of your golf experience and working with them, you've also been a caddy. What's that experience like? What kind of caddy are you?
Well, I'm a good caddy. I'm not a great caddy. The great caddies know what their player is thinking before they're actually thinking it, and they know what to be able to say, because great caddying is all about timing. The one thing I can share about caddying is simply this, right? People will ask, well, how heavy are those bags? Look, that bag is really heavy when they're shooting 76. It's not heavy at all when they're shooting 66. And the key is this, right? Is as a caddy, it's we shot 66, he shot 75. So when it comes to that team aspect, man, but I'm good, man. I'm not great, but it's the closest thing to actually being a coach and being in the mix, man. It's a fantastic experience.
Helps you connect with them on a different level, though, right?
Yeah, man, you get to see the ins and the outs, where their triggers are, where the happy spots are. Absolutely, man.
Second question, you mentioned the name Kenny Aronoff. For people that don't know, he was the drummer of John Mellencamp, and so that's an interesting guy to kick off your book. Tell me about that relationship.
So that was fantastic. So the story behind that was, when he was developing that very first album, he had started working with John Mellencamp, was with the band for about 5 weeks. And the producer comes to him when they're getting ready to cut the album saying, you're not going to be on the album. You can go home. And he says, and this was like the story that I kind of heard. So I interviewed him about it. And he said, I'm not going anywhere. He said, you don't have to pay me, but I'm going to stick around. So all these session drummers come in, and he stayed there with the band, watching them make it. As a part of the band, he's watching them play and practice. He's watching these session drummers taking notes about, hey, what did they do here? What did they do there? What did the producer like? And so then next time when Jack and Diane came out, the big hit, he was on that album because he had learned from that experience. But there was no way that he was going to be denied in that. And that was the story, man, that he wrote the foreword for. And stories like that are what it's all about, man. It's like we're going to have the setbacks. It's about the comeback, and can push that ego aside for that.
Couldn't agree with you more. And you and I see that in the same way in terms of the power of storytelling. And when you could find it from someone like that, obviously it resonates so beautifully. Third question, tell me about the love, the passion, the fascination for distance running, Ironman. I keep having guests like you on here, and I'm realizing that if there's a hope that it's going to rub off on me, I don't see that happening. But I do think that there's something really unique about people that are wired to do something like an Ironman, because most of us aren't. What is it about the Ironman that fascinates you or that attracts you?
Oh, man, it's the challenge. It's absolutely the challenge, and it's the community as well. And Joel, now that you mentioned that, man, I'm gonna be staying on you because who knows, there might be a 5K this summer you'll sign up for, man, and get out there. But look, I'm not the fastest, man. I really struggle with letting go of mistakes. And all you have to do in these races, all you have to do in life, it's a game of attrition, right? Even slow walkers arrive. All you got to do is just keep moving. And so when I ask myself that question, look, if you don't give up, will you be successful? Will you finish? The answer is yeah, man. That's the one thing I'm good at, is not giving up. Even to the detriment of my own health. Hey, I get it, but it's my journey that I'm on. If you don't give up, I truly believe that we will be successful. But that's the thing, right? Everybody has that breaking point. What's that breaking point look like? And in the world of ultra running 100 miles, man, in an Ironman, you meet yourself. You got a lot of highs and you got a lot of lows. That's life, man. You got to be, praising the tailwinds when they come, but you got to be cheering on that headwind, because that's actually what makes you better. And it's the perspective that I get after doing the training, after doing that the races become all about community. The one part that was so difficult about last year was everything was canceled. I don't know, you can't get that virtual experience from, in a run that you can get by being able to run aside somebody who's really trying to do something difficult, and be able to try to pick them up and be able to say, hey, man, just keep moving, right? Left foot, right foot, man, left foot, right foot. We can do this. To be able to make that connection, I don't know where else we make that connection in life. Doesn't happen to me at the supermarket, in the Starbucks line. It only happens like during those races. That's why I cherish those. That's why I love them so much, man.
I think everyone will take a little something from even slow walkers arrive, because many of us are that slow walker, but that doesn't mean we're supposed to stop or quit. You will not be the first. You are not the first person to suggest motivation for a 5K. We'll see if you can be the first to actually make it happen. Stay tuned on that one. I'll give Rob the credit if indeed it does happen. I seem to always take these little steps and then I get sidetracked, which is a total weakness, by the way, too. I mean, that's completely on me. Final question, the walk-off as we round the bases here. I hate the question favorite guy to work with, favorite this, favorite that, because if you do it enough, it's the same thing for me. Who's your favorite player of all time? There's never just going to be one. So you sort of have to force yourself into that answer a little bit. And I know how to do that. And I know that you do too. But is there one person that you've worked with, one athlete that brought out the best in you or that impacted your life?
I don't know if there was. Well, I mean, I would definitely say, and I can mention this because we don't work together anymore. So, I mean, if we get back, I mean, I always say like Scott Stallings, the relationship that we had. I mean, he was a mini tour player, and we worked together up till he's winning on the PGA Tour. And I mean, it's storybook stuff when you think about it. But it was the reason why is because I learned so much from him and how he approached things and how we challenged each other on so many different aspects. And we're still friends today, and I see him at tour events all the time. And that's a guy who's transformed himself, keeps transforming himself. But when you have an athlete that reaches success like that and is a good person, it makes life just so worth it, man, in those moments. And it solidified the belief, because that was early on in my career, that, hey, man, maybe you are pretty good at doing this coaching thing. What was the recipe for success and how he approached things. I can't ever get away from that one, because that was always the first winner, man. There's always something special about that first, man. So that was definitely it. Now, if you ask me, hey, man, what were athletes you didn't work with that you respected or had great moments, man, I always share that one too, because those are a lot easier.
Well, who do you got?
Man, if anybody needs inspiration, you always got to get back to, because my favorite athletes, man, were Cal Ripken and Steve Young. Athletes. If you want to get back to the best single day performance ever in the history of sport, you got to get back to 1964 Billy Mills, the 10,000 meter in Tokyo, and to run 1 minute faster than you've ever ran before in your life, to have third place already locked up and to still be able to fight off the reigning world record champion and the world record holder. and to break through that and win. And he's still the last American to ever win the 10,000 meters in the Olympics. And the reason why it's so inspiring is just somebody has to go to YouTube and YouTube it, man. Just Billy Mills 10,000 meters. You're going to see the finish. And then you see what the capability and potential of actual, the human spirit is, man. I still think that's the single best one-day performance of anybody.
Great stuff and amazing stories here today. If you want to learn more about Dr. Rob Bell, you can go to his website, really easy, drrobbell.com, drrobbell.com. And the accomplishments, they speak for themselves, but I'll review some of them again real quick. He's worked with 3 different winners of the PGA Tour. He served as a mental coach for the University of Notre Dame. He has worked with Indy 500 champion, Olympians. We talked about all the golf and now his own competing with Ironman. There's a 100-mile trail run that'll be in the future. He is also the host of the podcast, 15 Minutes of Mental Toughness. I encourage you to check that out because you'll get a lot of inspiration, hopefully like you did today. You might even want to listen to one where he had me on as a guest. We'll see, maybe not, but that was a lot of fun for sure. So Rob, thanks for all the inspiration. Thanks for all the expertise. And again, also people can check out all of his books, the most recent being Puke and Rally. Rob, thanks so much for spending time today.
Thanks, Joel. Appreciate you, buddy.
All right, great to visit with Dr. Rob Bell, and thanks to all of you for another episode of Rounding the Bases. Shout out to my sponsors, Kansas City Audio Visual, Kissick Construction, and Enterprise Bank and Trust. Businesses often come to Enterprise Bank because they need a partner that leverages a longer-term strategy in helping them to overcome short-term obstacles in achieving their goals. If you want my book, you can find it on Amazon. You could also reach out to me for an autographed copy through my website, joelgoldbergmedia.com. You can also send me suggestions, social media, all that good stuff. Hope to catch you next time on Rounding the Bases.